Combining a colorful setting with unique yet familiar mechanics, Death Bulge is a solid choice for the RPG fan in search of something fresh. The story, which follows a band cursed to both receive and inflict harm through sound, is decidedly lighter and sillier than the overly dramatic plots that characterize some similar games. However, it's the dynamic, real-time combat system and highly customizable characters that make it a real joy to play. There are a lot of throwback RPGs these days, but very few with the scope and attention to detail found in 8-Bit Adventures 2. It features a large map, extensive storyline, and wide array of side quests that give it a length comparable to most 90s JRPGs. However, it also brings a more tactical combat style that mixes up typical turn-based fights with a diverse selection of abilities, elevating strategy over grinding. Nitro Kid combines elements of deck builders and TRPGs to create something that has the strengths of both without their weaknesses. The 3 playable characters have very different playstyles, but they're all intuitive and an experienced player won't take too long to start developing a build. And with an environment-focused combat design that emphasizes moment-to-moment tactics, the player is less likely to suffer from bad luck than in a pure deck builder. For TRPG enthusiasts, Crawl Tactics offers gameplay that's dense yet approachable, with a focus on building large combos. Every action affects the battlefield, activating traps, igniting or freezing tiles, triggering explosions, all of which can chain into each other to devastate vast areas. Add in the game's roguelike elements, and you have something that is distinctive and challenging variation on familiar TRPG gameplay. While the game development skewering humor is the initial draw, Crush the Industry also brings some bold design ideas that elevate it above your typical deck-building RPG. The combat system is both fast and tactical, with mechanics to reduce the risk and impact of bad luck. However, it is still the comedy that really makes this one stand out, with jabs at corporate and video game culture that are bound to be familiar to a lot of people. Putting the player in the role of the most important but least appreciated part of any RPG party, Healer's Quest is all about keeping the grunts alive. In the role of a healer with no offensive capabilities whatsoever, it's the player's job to manage the party and keep them from dying at an inopportune time. It's an unorthodox approach that brings a new feel to a familiar genre. Terrorbane leads the player on a fourth-wall-breaking adventure into the guts of a cursed, glitch-ridden video game. With the power of the titular reality-rending sword, the protagonist hunts for bugs and unmakes the rules of the game space on a quest that leads across worlds. The gameplay offers an RPG puzzle hybrid experience that's challenging, but also intuitive for anyone who has a good understanding of game logic. Moncon is a short RPG featuring some unusual mechanical and narrative elements. The protagonist is a young man with such severe social problems that an ordinary conversation turns into a battle against his own anxiety. The system for overcoming these issues requires identifying weaknesses and exploiting them with rhythm game mechanics. It's a light, breezy game perfect for anyone looking for a new experience. The last in a series of games that stretches back to the Flash era, Godfall combines old-school CRPG sensibilities with management elements. The player takes charge of a mercenary guild that gets drawn into royal politics and an impending disaster that threatens everything. Godfall features a lot of options for character customization and plenty of room for exploration, making it perfect for anyone with a taste for big games. If you're more interested in the mechanical side of RPGs than the story, then Cerulean games are for you. The player builds a team from a selection of hundreds of monsters, customizes them with upgrades and equipment, then leads them into an infinitely deep dungeon. With an expandable castle, extensive upgrades, and secrets galore, it's a game made for anyone who sees 100 hours as just the beginning. For puzzle fans, Deleveled offers a unique core mechanic that is both simple and flexible. It's a jumpless platformer in which the player controls 2 linked characters with opposing gravity. The only way to gain altitude is by transferring momentum from one character to the other. It's a system that allows for a lot of different challenges in varying levels of difficulty. Fans of Shovel Knight and its ilk will find a lot to like in Bat-Boy, a retro-styled action platformer with sports anime flavor. Compared to its brethren, Bat-Boy features more levels built around technical jumping, making it a bit more challenging than most without feeling excessively difficult. If the typical 2D platformer has gotten a little bit too easy for you, this will probably be your speed. As the name suggests, Haver is a game built around the player's ability to slice blocks in half. Combined with some carefully applied physics, and you have a system that allows a savvy player the means to manipulate the movement of objects in many different ways. The system offers more room for creativity than most puzzle platformers, with many levels offering different approaches to reach the goal. Boasting an accurate retro aesthetic with some modern flourishes, Tiny Thor is a meaty puzzle action platformer hybrid. Most levels are built around the protagonist's ability to toss and bounce his hammer, a versatile tool used to solve a lot of different puzzles. Between large levels with lots of secrets and the huge number of levels overall, Tiny Thor brings a lot of bang for the buck. Magic Hat is a massive old-school platformer featuring dozens of levels with a sizable array of mechanics and tons of bosses. One novel feature is the ability for the player to manipulate the overworld in various ways to either shortcut around areas or access bonus levels. This makes it a game that the player can approach in different ways, finish it fast, or take time to explore. For platformer fans looking for something a little bit different, Super Puzzle Platformer Deluxe combines the usual jumping and dodging with arcade puzzle score attack gameplay. The player is tasked with evading spikes, falling blocks, and traps, while destroying clusters of light-colored blocks to gain points and power up. It's a simple concept that grows fast and intense in a hurry. Combining rhythm gameplay with a simple color-based combat system, Taka Taka is a challenging game that demands strong multitasking ability. The player controls two characters simultaneously, switching them between two different tracks to defeat color-coded enemies. It's an easy-to-grasp concept with intense yet accessible gameplay that begs to be mastered. Twin-stick shooters are a dime a dozen, but City of Beats mixes up the formula by making the music an integral part of the experience. Both player and enemy attacks are timed to the central beat of the BGM, giving the player a simple and intuitive way to feel out the game flow. Add in a robust upgrade system and some interesting variety in the weapons, and you have a game that stands out from its peers. Last Shape Standing is a minimalistic microgame collection built around a basic concept. Don't touch anything that's red. The controls for each microgame are limited to movement and sometimes an action button, but there's enough variety in the games to make the whole thing feel dynamic. And while there's plenty of action in single player, it also offers a robust multiplayer experience for those who prefer playing with friends. Musashi vs. Cthulhu offers a classic, easy-to-learn, hard-to-master gameplay experience built around a combined move and attack combat system. Enemies approach from both sides, with the player defeating them with swift, precise attacks to weak spots, with later enemies adding more complex attack routines. It's effortless to pick up, but very satisfying once you've found the right rhythm. My Night Job puts the player in the shoes of a part-time monster hunter out to make some quick money by rescuing horror movie victims from an overrun mansion. It's a challenging game, forcing the player to balance rescuing bystanders with hunting enemies, as the monsters will eventually destroy the mansion if their numbers grow too large. A great choice for anyone looking to recapture that arcade side-scroller feel. Combining the gameplay of Lemmings with the tragic story and high production values, Tin Hearts is a beautiful, charming puzzler combining the best of old and new. The player uses toys to direct a line of wind-up soldiers through a series of rooms to an exit door. It's a system that's easy to grasp, satisfying to execute, and with plenty of opportunities for some breathtaking screenshots. Taking its cue from the vintage cell phone game Snake, Temple of Snek puts the player in control of a deified serpent that grows ever longer as it devours intruders. The controls and core mechanics will be immediately recognizable to anyone who ever went hands-on with its ancestor, while the puzzles, which mostly center around maneuvering through twisting, trap-filled corridors, are logical and challenging. A lot of puzzle platformers feature distinctive aesthetics, but few offer the level of detail as Full Void. Using a graphical style inspired by games like Out of This World, Full Void sends the player on a perilous journey across a dead city swarming with biomechanical terrors. The stealth and timing puzzles are just hard enough to give a sense of tension as the player witnesses one surreal, nightmarish sight after another. Guayada is a perfect fit for anyone who wants a little action mixed in with their puzzle solving. Each puzzle room starts in a timing-oriented mode, but failure sends the player into a spectral version of the same map with a slower, more cerebral set of challenges. This gives the player a choice to finish the version better matching their skills, or to aim for completionism and tackle both. There aren't a lot of games that feature both puzzles and gruesome deaths, and Heinrich fills that unusual niche. Heinrich's puzzles are built around words carved into the platforms under the protagonist's feet. Through a bit of magic, the player can make those words manifest, offering different solutions to obstacles. But it's the gory consequences of failure that are often the most memorable part of the game. Bedtime Digital's music-themed action-adventure game is one of the more visually and aurally distinctive games to hit the scene in the past few years. It's an easygoing experience with some variety in the gameplay and some truly memorable moments. A typical player will be able to finish the game in 2 to 3 hours, a little bit longer if you want to find all of the secrets. Moonleap builds its puzzles around a simple yet innovative mechanic. Jumping affects the entire world, switching traps on and off and changing enemy behavior. It's a more challenging game than its cartoony look may suggest, but most players should still be able to finish it in due course. Expect the journey to take 2 to 4 hours depending on player skill and completion level. Mice Guard is an RTS action hybrid with a little bit of Watership Down flavor. Built around a simple system that allows the player to command NPC units with just a few buttons, Mice Guard offers a novel experience that's easy to pick up and understand. A reasonably skilled player should be able to finish up the game in a little under 3 hours. One of the smaller games in DreadXP's library, Red Tape is a satirical horror game that re-envisions Dante's Hell as a 9-story office building. Taking on the role of a newly fallen angel, the player's goal is to navigate the bureaucracy, solving tasks for various lost souls to clear a path to the boardroom. Expect to take around 2 hours to reach the end of the story. Jumpless platformers are an interesting niche, and Raven's Hike is a particularly challenging one that requires both good timing and quick thinking. It's a good choice for puzzle game fans who are fine with a faster game demanding a little bit of action. Raven's Hike offers 2 to 4 hours of gameplay depending on players' skill and completion level. Harkening back to the age of 8-bit computers, Lulu's Temple packs a lot of atmosphere and dread into its simple graphics and sound. The game's visual design is built around light and darkness, with light also factoring into its puzzles. A player with some platformer experience should be able to wrap it up in a little under 2 hours. Some games struggle because their design is just too unorthodox to explain in a brief marketing blurb. The Magic Circle, which I could best describe as an open-world adventure game, a strange beast if there ever was one, definitely falls into that category. The Magic Circle puts the player in the role of an error in the system. The story centers around a fictional game, also called the Magic Circle, that has been caught in development hell for decades. The fault lies with the game's auteur developer, who can be heard bickering with his long-suffering team members throughout the game. But there are secrets aplenty, both within the game within a game, and in the characters surrounding it, and the player will ultimately decide the fate of this doomed game. The objective in the Magic Circle is a simple one: reach a walled-off part of the game that's on the other side of a chasm and a pack of angry enemies. Lacking any means of self-defense, let alone flight, the player is instead gifted with the ability to create magical traps. By snaring characters in the game, the player can manipulate their attributes, turning friends into foes, taking traits from one creature and giving them to another, and so forth. There is a ready means to solve all of the game's puzzles, but the player also has the tools to seek out new and creative solutions. I have a soft spot for the odd, and this one qualifies in spades. Super Daryl Deluxe is a Metroidvania platformer RPG that stands out for its wonderfully bizarre visuals and story. That story puts the player in the loafers of Daryl Whitelaw, the undisputed Lord of the Dorks. He's a transfer student to Water Falls, a high school best known for producing 2 students who caused the world's most mundane apocalypse. He shows up on a day commemorating said apocalypse, and it's immediately obvious that something isn't right. Most of the student body is missing, many of the classrooms have turned into sprawling pocket dimensions, and the way the teacher's eyes are glowing is a bit disconcerting. Daryl's goal is just to get from one day to the next, which isn't so easy when every room is full of history's greatest monsters brought to life. To defend himself, Daryl obtains a range of offensive powers by trading in textbooks, a rare and precious good in Water Falls. Daryl's powers are a diverse lot, and while the early stages of the game can be completed simply by spamming a few basic attacks, the later enemies and bosses require tactical use of some of Daryl's more exotic gifts. It's possible that some of you are familiar with an earlier iteration of this game titled Earthlock Festival of Magic. Earthlock, sans subtitle, is a re-release and upgrade that significantly improved the experience in many ways, reinserting a mountain of cut content, balancing the characters, and making the story, well, present. Earthlock is a throwback JRPG set on a planet that doesn't spin and the days and nights are fixed, hence the title. The story follows your typical ragtag RPG crew who go on an adventure and blunder into a secret plan by the big bad. You've seen it before. It's a vintage story that harkens back to RPGs of the 6th generation, and indeed the game's aesthetics and design are based on the days of the PS2. Where Earthlock really stands out is in its mechanics. While sticking to classic turn-based combat, the game adds a number of twists, including switchable stances with different movesets, and an experience system that rewards the player for tackling more technically challenging fights. Add in the detailed graphic design, and you have something that should appeal to any aficionado of 2000s era RPGs. I could easily fill this list with all of the great twin-stick and gallery shooters no one talks about, but in the name of keeping things simple, I'll limit myself to one of the more polished of the bunch. Bot Vice is the product of DYA Games, a studio specializing in games that imitate the look and feel of classic arcade titles, especially Neo Geo. This one sees protagonist Aaron Saver blasting her way through armies of robots and voice acting so bad that it has to be intentional. She has a pretty expansive toolkit to achieve that goal, along with the obligatory firearm and power-ups. She also has a variety of defensive measures, including a dodge roll and a bullet-deflecting blade. Now aesthetically, Bot Vice is simply nicer to look at than most pixel art games, with more attention paid to the palettes and animations than you usually saw from games released in this period. Add to that its surprising replay value with lots of bonus stages and challenges for people with arcade caliber skills, and you have something that's well worth its small price. I've often wondered if Underhero suffered from being mixed up with that other game featuring that other rabidly zealous and not at all disturbing fanbase. Well, Underhero places the player in the role of a cannon fodder bad guy, a masked kid, one of many meant to serve as speed bumps for the hero. But everything changes when this particular masked kid accidentally kills the hero and claims his magical, talking, shape-shifting weapon. Sensing an opportunity to take over the show, the masked kid's boss, one Mr. Stitches, sends his peon on a quest to defeat all of the other bosses. Needless to say, though, there's more than meets the eye here. At heart, Underhero is a game that idolizes the Paper Mario games, with a similar gameplay style and stylized cartoon-like graphics. It is a platformer with RPG combat, but everything is action-driven. No grinding for success here. Winning fights means learning how to read an enemy's behavior, dodge or counter their attacks, and then retaliate with the best weapon for the job. The combat system is easy but engaging, and just about anyone should be able to get a handle on it. I feel like the original Evoland is fairly well known, but the far more substantial sequel has been a little bit lost. Now, the original Evoland was an interesting exploration of action-adventure and RPG mechanics past, but it was ultimately more of an interactive museum exhibit than a game. Evoland 2 takes that concept, adds a proper narrative, and carries it on an adventure across time and space. Taking control of an amnesiac, time-hopping mystery man, the player must gather a typically ragtag assortment of allies on a journey to figure out why he was sent through time in the first place. Now, the original Evoland was known for switching its genre at will, paying homage to famous titles with loving mockery, mainly The Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy. In the follow-up, the list has gotten a bit longer. We're talking Street Fighter, 1942, Bomberman, Advance Wars, Professor Layton, Chrono Trigger, Puzzle Fighter, Dance Dance Revolution, Double Dragon. While the game is not overly difficult, the diversity in the gameplay can nevertheless be a real test of skill, and surprisingly, it never feels unfocused. The transition from genre to genre actually feels very natural to the story.